Testing test.
Lyndon Lebayan.
Hi guys, my name is Lyndon. I'm a software developer, hobby wedding videographer, and I just want to do a quick video about lenses. So I get a lot of questions on like Instagram DMs, even some in the comments of these videos, and I try my best to answer them. But I mean, you get the typical ones about like which camera should I buy, my thoughts on the S5 II versus FX3, FX30 or whatever. And like one of the other questions I'm getting now is like lenses, shopping for the first or second lens. So I figured instead of like answering definitively like this is the lens you should buy, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the lenses I chose to go with, maybe the lenses I would go with now knowing what I know. So when I switched from the Micro Four Thirds systems like the GH5, GH6 on the G9 into the S5 and S5 Mark II going to full frame L mount, I opted for the 24-105 as my first lens and decided to go that route versus the 24-70 f2.8, mainly because I knew I would need the reach more than the depth of field or the low light ability, at least for what I was planning to use the lens for. Right now, I am currently without any f2.8 lenses. I don't have any Holy Trinity, so to speak, lenses. In fact, the Holy Trinity lenses I do have, I would call the poor man's Holy Trinity. The 16-35 f4, the 24-105 f4, and the 70-200 f4, all f4s. Typically, I'm shooting outdoors, generally in daylight, and I would need more reach than I would a little bit more depth of field. I get more from that 105 than I do with the 70, that I think anyway, with the 70 on the long end for my zoom. And even then, I'm using like f6, f8, you know, depending on the sun. And even then I'm using an ND filter. Let's say I was using an f4. I'm still going to be using an ND. So that's kind of why I lean that way. Also, when I was buying these lenses, the 24-105 and the 24-70 from Lumix were the only two zooms out at the moment. The DGDN from Sigma 24-70 wasn't out yet. I think that came out later. That and the 16-28 came out way later. The price difference between the 24-105 and the 24-70 f2.8 was huge, so right away I knew I could put that money elsewhere, and yeah, I get a lot more from that 105. On the other end of that, what if I do need low light? Turns out you do. You're shooting in some indoor areas where you don't have control of the lighting, reception, notoriously low light, depending on if you've set up your lights or not for speeches. Yeah, I need something with a little more better low light performance. I've come from liking weird focal lengths. I say weird like not the typical like 24-70 and 70-200-ish, because I had shot on the GH5 and the GH6 for so long, and the G9. I've come from Micro Four Thirds for such a long time. How long have I been recording? Focal length for me has been kind of up in the air. You know, I'm just used to being happy with what I ended up with, especially when I speed boost. So the Sigma 18-35, I cut my teeth on that lens. That was my go-to typically, and I would adapt that on a adapter that reduced by 0.71, and then you times that again by 2 to get your real focal length. Okay, so that 18-35 on the GH5 and GH6 ended up being 25-26 millimeters. So even then, knowing I was shooting on an 18, I was technically getting like a 25 at the end of the day on the wide end, and closer to like a 30-40 or 45. Okay, so closer to 48. Even on the 18-35, I was generally from 25 to almost to 50, and that's kind of an oddball focal length. Now today, my low light lens that I go to is actually the Sigma 28-45, and it's very weird, especially on the S5 II. And it's because it's weird that I like it so much. Now, I'm not a full frame snob. I like the fact that I can crop with this thing. But if I wanted to crop at the 45, you know, at 1.5, I'm getting... Okay, Google, what's 45 times 1.5?
The answer is 67.5. All
right, so if I'm cropping, that 45 gets me 68 millimeters. The approach I have, too, for this 28 to 45 is... yeah, it's a zoom lens. Yes, it's 1.8. I'm not really treating it like a zoom. I figured out that my favorite focal length is around the 30-35. People say this 28 to 45 is like 3 primes in 1, but I don't really treat it like that. In fact, I like the 35 so much, I actually own a 35mm f1 too. I don't typically use it because I don't need that f1.2 as much as I thought I would. What I do like is hovering around that 35 and being able to, zoom out a little bit or zoom in a little bit. Unrelated but related. Before the 28 to 45 was announced, I almost bought the EF 24 to 35 f2, 18 to 35 full frame equivalent that Sigma released, and I was okay with adapting with the Sigma adapter. And but yeah, thankfully the 28 to 45 was announced, and at f1.8 is pretty sweet. My choices for using the 24 to 105 and the 28 to 45 as my two go-to lenses are, again, mainly because I came from Micro Four Thirds, and I feel like I'm not sold really on shallow depth of field at any given moment, especially when you shoot outdoors so much. You realize like you're using an ND, and if you only have like a 2 to 5, or you don't have a 6 to 9, even sometimes a 6 to 9, and you're keeping your shutter angle like 180 degrees, like it might not be enough in some cases. So if I was starting over from scratch and knowing what I know, I'd still be happy with the 24 to 105 as the all-around outdoor lens, we'll call it, and either a prime, or if I could afford at the time, if let's say I was starting out and I could afford the 28 to 45 f1.8, I would still go with that. The 28 to 105 f2.8 from Sigma is $2,000 Canadian, and I haven't seen it go on sale yet. Right now, I think, yeah, it's not affected by any like the Black Friday or Boxing Day or holiday pricing because it's so new. So I wouldn't be looking at that. Yeah, if I couldn't get the 28 to 45, I'd probably pick up like the Sigma or the Lumix 35. Yeah, Lumix or Sigma 35 millimeter, either f1.8 or f1.4, I believe. But that's what I would do. If I was going to recommend a lens, best bang for buck, 24 to 105 f4, and a lot of the Sony shooters, you guys have awesome low light performance. Let's say you were shooting with that 24 to 105 in low light, you could just bump up your ISO and call it a day. Sure, it won't be ideal, and yes, you won't have that creamy shallow depth of field, but I think getting the shot is worth more than blowing out that background or blurring out that background. That was a ramble. I don't know how well this is going to edit. I just really felt like putting out a video. I'm editing my last wedding video for the season. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. Surprisingly, a lot of brands have been reaching out, offering to send stuff. So I'm going to be looking at some products to see if, they're worth it for me and if I'd recommend them. So stay tuned for some of that. Like I said, anybody shooting me questions, I'm going to try my best to answer them. And if, I get enough of like a certain question, which I have been, I'm going to make videos about them and like just talk about my experience with them. And while I won't answer like, this is what you should do, I'll at least say like, this is what I would do based on context that I've given. Okay. All right. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Okay. Bye.